Well, hi there. This is Phil Carlson once again with a quick message for your personal, professional, and spiritual growth. And today we're going to be speaking out of Psalm 127, verse 1, which says, "Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Unless the Lord guards the city, the watchman keeps awake in vain." The point here is simply that unless God is involved in whatever the project may be, whatever the endeavor is, building a business, starting a job with a company that looks like your dream job, whatever it is, unless the vision for everything that's being done is focused on this is for God, this is about Him, this is worship towards Him, then it may be possible that whatever this venture is could actually be a form of idolatry or presumption. And with presumption, you actually could put yourself in a position of being opposed to the very thing that God is doing. You can actually see this at one point when Solomon is about to be installed as king, and instead an alternate is selected. And there's an alternate high priest, and there's an alternate choice for the leaders of the armies. And they are all about to set in this alternate king, and then David speaks up and sets Solomon in place. And guess what happens? All of these others who acted in presumption, they are killed, they are exiled, they cannot have what they were aimed at. And in fact, they were in opposition to the very thing God was doing. So we don't want to act in presumption. Well, what are some ways we can keep that in mind and remind ourselves of how to keep focused on what matters? Well, it starts by remembering not only that unless God is involved in the project, unless He is the core vision, it's being done in vain, but also remembering that even our greatest works, as it says in Isaiah chapter 64, verse 6, are like filthy rags before God. None of our works have intrinsic value before God. Not even how loving or self-sacrificing or kind or virtuous they may seem before other people. Ultimately, what matters to God is the position of the heart. And this is the reality of where our hearts are at if we are not surrendered to Jesus Christ, if we're not keeping our eyes on Him and remembering He is our only hope. He is our only place for salvation, our only person upon whom we can trust. The fact is, if we fear God, then we want Him involved at every step. Terry Looper, in his book Sacred Pace, actually explains how in building a company, he actually made a step-by-step process choice about how he was going to seek God. Going to God first in prayer, secondly, considering the facts of the situation, third, considering the circumstances, and fourth, really getting to a place in his heart that God, if this is you, I'm going to go for it. And if this is not you, then even though I have hopes and dreams associated with it, and I've even put money into this, I will surrender all of that. Instead, I would rather look like a fool before the world than actually be a fool before God. So this is so important for us to remember whatever power we think we have, knowledge, experience, wisdom, no matter how much we actually know about a particular opportunity, how much we think we can really do this thing. If we don't go to God first, if we aren't seeking His will in the entire process, then we may be acting in dangerous presumption. And I know there have been many times in my life where I've done that. It leads to secrets, it leads to sin, and it leads ultimately to misery and shame. And if it's not stopped, it leads to death. So let's today focus on instead surrendering our lives to Christ, like it says in Colossians 3:23 and 24. Whatever we do, doing it as unto the Lord, where it's actually a form of worship. In fact, in Hebrew, the word for worship is the same word for service. In fact, in Hebrew, there's a phrase, avodah shebalev. It can mean service from the heart or work from the heart, but it can also mean worship from the heart. Let our service be our worship before God. And one of the main ways to do that is to ask God how He wants it done. And there are things in the scriptures that give us clear guidance on that, but we can also find that guidance from other godly believers and through truly entering into a place of prayer and worship of God. God bless you and have a great day.